I think he wanted us to have an intimate relationship with him. Would we have had an intimate relationship with him before the fall? Maybe. But then it'd almost be as though we were angels, in a sense, because the angels didn't sin or don't experience suffering the same way we do. And that can help us grow in our intimacy with Jesus and with God. But, I think without the fall, then we wouldn't have the opportunity to be that intimate with him and have a relationship, a personal relationship with him. Maybe we would have, but...
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting, though, because I think that's the part of the personal relationship that it said God was walking in the cool of the day and calling out to him. That's very personal. And so I think there would have been that, but there wouldn't have been God's love at a price. I don't know what else to say. So, but God still, when you take the whole book of Genesis together, what's happening is that you have something perfect. You have a perfect relationship with God, but then it keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. And you know what? Is the solution we'll destroy all of humanity and start over again with the flood? No, it still doesn't work. Man still gets worse and worse. And God's plan is, I'm going to make my own people, Israel, but then out of that people is going to become a savior for all the world. And through that savior, then people will have that perfect relationship back with me. So it's like perfection, and you keep on getting away from the perfection. And then God sends Jesus, and now, at least on God's side, you have a perfect relationship with him, but we still keep on messing up. So I would say that's the message of Genesis. The next chapter, we're going to hear, oh man, at least there's not all these bad influences in the world like we have now. And the next story, what's going to happen? Cain's going to kill his brother. The first son that's born winds up being a murderer. And not just a murderer, he kills his own brother. It's fratricide. So it's, that's really the message of Genesis, that nothing on man's side is going to be able to heal this bridge now. It just becomes a chasm that gets worse and worse.
You want to hop into 4, Cain and Abel?
Well, I want to say a couple more things about, and I've said this before, but I always think it's worthy. Adam and Eve sinned. Now, Adam and Eve are the top of the tree of creation. They're the ultimate. They're the highest part of creation. But when the top of the tree falls, it brings the rest of the tree with it. So none of creation is how it was designed to be. We already see that nature is now going to be in rebellion against man. Then, when you skip now to the book of Romans, Romans sounds really interesting because it says that all of creation is looking forward to the redemption of the sons of man. That means the resurrection of you and me. And creation knows. Somehow creation is longing for something better. Somehow creation is desiring something better. Even creation, maybe, how can rocks think this way? I don't understand it. But creation is wanting Christ to come back and make things apparently right again. And that's really an interesting thought to me, that it's just not about me and God, but it's me, God, and the whole universe. The whole universe isn't how it should be. But the universe starts to get righted through Jesus. And the number one thing to get right is our relationship with God, and everything else will follow from that. So as everything went backwards and humanity fell and brought all of creation down with it, because humanity is part of creation. When Jesus solves the problem of creation and brings man back up, humanity back up to God and a good relationship with him, then also creation can come back up. So it's all very cosmic.
It's like the tree can regrow.
The tree shows up again at the end of the book of Revelation. John says he sees the tree of life, and it's back. and that all the nations can now partake of it again. And now there's peace among the nations. So it's really kind of cool, Genesis and Revelation. Maybe that's one of the reasons why Revelation became one of the last books of the Bible, because of the cool stuff in there and the ties between Genesis. I don't know.
I never actually read Revelation yet. Everyone says it's so good.
Who says it's so good?
It's like, I think it's Kim's favorite, one of her favorite books. It's Bryce's favorite book, Bible. Just says it's cool stuff.
Okay, and I love Revelation. The more I study it, the more I like it. I'm just saying that, oh man.
It's depressing also.
Well, what happens is that I think it's caused I don't know, I don't think I should say it caused problems in Sunday school. But some people have just thrown up their hands, and it's even been asked in Sunday school class, why is this even in here, Pastor? Maybe we can study Revelation another time and talk about those things. But it really, people have a hard time with it. So, anyways.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm hesitating reading it, because I feel like I need to read all the other ones first before I get there.
Well, I wish that's how it is the last book, but a lot of times that's the first book that people read.
Well, I think because it hasn't happened yet. So, everything else in the book has already happened. It's like you're getting a history lesson. But Revelations hasn't happened yet. So, it's just one of those things that's hard to wrap your head around, maybe.
And see, what I would say reading Revelation is that a lot of Revelation has happened. It's actually talking about Jesus and then the time that you could say is now. But that's the thing. Some people say the whole thing hasn't happened yet. And that's when I think people get in trouble with it. But there's these wonderful, back to Genesis, there's these wonderful tie-ins with the book of Revelation and the first 3 chapters of Genesis.
Have the most tie-ins to Revelation?
Yeah, there's other books that you can really give insight, like Ezekiel gives some insight into Revelation, book of Revelation. I'm sorry, the book of Daniel. But I would say those are just examples of how Revelation is speaking, not necessarily Ezekiel and Daniel taking Revelation, taking parts from them, but it kind of says, oh, yeah, this is a genre that was known to people. They understood how this worked. And sometimes I think people don't read Revelation correctly because they don't look at it as a genre. And the Bible's full of genres, and we actually understand genre. And I'll say this again, I'm sure. But I always found it really interesting. The concept of genre we're all familiar with, because if an alien came down to planet Earth and they started watching TV for the first time, they probably said, oh man, I was watching this movie, but it was really weird. It was about this murderer about to kill somebody, but then all of a sudden people start talking about toothpaste. Well, why is that? Oh, that's a commercial. The genre changed. But sometimes I'm afraid Christians don't realize they're now going to a different genre when they read the Bible. We understand it because we watch TV, and there's comedies, and there's mysteries, and there's commercials, and there's educational stuff. But for some reason, when we read the Bible, we just read it. This is all the same. There is no difference in genre. There's obviously difference in genre. There's a book called the Psalms, and it's poetry. And you cannot read poetry like you would read history. And it just, it's very neat to me, but it really seems to be tough for people.
So is there, would you consider any books of the Bible to be fiction?
I would say symbolic, but symbolic of truths. So it's not necessarily like it happened exactly how the vision is, but the visions are portraying truths in pictorial language. Okay. Huh. Just like you look at a flag, it's just a flag. Oh, but that's the United States. It's blue and it's got stars and stripes. Oh, that's my country. And so the flag, there's something behind the flag. It represents something. It represents something very real. But you get a picture first, and then you see what's behind the picture. And the symbol of the U.S. is a flag. And so now I see a flag, I'm going to be thinking about the United States. But it seems like when people read Revelation, they see the flag, but then they just think the flag is still there, and it's only the flag. They don't go to behind what the flag is representing, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They keep it as the flag. Yeah. No, there's a reality behind the flag. So when you see all these creatures, I've known people who will say, "Oh, that's this creature that will invade the U.S." And it's got 7 heads, and it speaks blasphemies with the 7 heads, and it's this weirdo dragon. No, that's the power of Satan. It's just, why are you turning? It's obvious. Never mind. It's not obvious to people. I shouldn't say that. Okay.
How dare you?
Yeah. So, but anyways, people are bad with symbols. They read the Bible all the same, that it's all the same. But you can't read poetry as you would history. You can't read Paul. Paul's writing letters to somebody, so they don't read like the Gospels. The Gospels read more like a story. So you better not read all these things the same. We know this when we watch TV, but when we read the Bible, we seem to not be in our brains. So
how do you depict, like if I'm going into Exodus and I've never read Exodus, how do I depict what's what? Or do you just start reading it and you're like, okay, this is what this is?
Well, when you read Exodus, I would say it's obvious that it's a history.
Would you say all of the Old Testament is history?
No, there's even some stuff that I would say is like Revelation. Daniel and some parts of Ezekiel. It's almost like you're reading the book of Revelation for a little bit.
Do you think Job was really in a fish?
I believe Jonah actually...
Or Jonah. I always get Jonah and Job mixed up. Job is the one that lost everything and ended up and was still faithful to Jesus, or to God. But Jonah was the one in the fish.
Yeah. And see, I have no problem with that one either.
Now, does that read like a story? Or like...
It reads like a story.
Like a story?
Yeah. Now, I don't want people think story. Then a lot of times when people hear story, they think once upon a time.
Yeah.
And it was made up. But no, this is history, but history with a point. Okay? And history, it's definitely pro-God. If you understand what I'm saying. It's pro-God history. It's part of the narrative about a world. When you look at Jonah, you shouldn't be... People focus so much on whether it was a whale or a fish. Yeah. But you really should be saying, oh, wow. When you read Jonah, you should be thinking to yourself, wow, did a guy really get swallowed by a fish? No, you should be thinking, wow, God called a human being to bring a message to somebody that was not the Jews even before Jesus came. Sometimes we think, oh, now God started caring about the world after Jesus came. The book of Jonah says no, and God even sent missionaries to the world.
I feel like the book of Jonah makes me laugh because I connect myself to it a lot, because Jonah was really trying to run away from God. And God was like, look, you're not going to get away from me. I chose you, and this is what's going to happen, whether you like it or not. So he stuck him in a fish. And I think that's so funny to me, because I feel like I'm a fish. I was stuck in a fish, almost. Like, I tried to run away from God on multiple occasions, and he still was like, look, this is what's going to happen for you. And it is what it is. You're going to have to deal with it.
Wow. Well, I think that's a much better perspective than a lot of people have. That's great, Shannon, because I'm afraid a lot of people think Jonah gets swallowed as a punishment. If you actually read the text, it's the fish that saved him from drowning. Okay, he writes this whole song, and he said, while I was drowning, I felt the seaweed was wrapped around my head. Okay, I thought I was done for. And then I turned to the Lord. So at the very last second, he turned to God, and wow, a fish showed up, swallowed him, so he was alive. Okay, it actually was his savior. What's interesting in the history of the church is that what was one of the early Christian symbols of Jesus was a fish. Okay, so it kind of really worked well with Jonah. Okay, and that means, oh boy, that's another one I got to share with the kids for children's message, what the words mean. So maybe that should be the last one. I thought last week was going to be the last one, but there's one more probably. Ichthus. Have you ever seen that?
What is it?
It's the word Ixthus inside a fish. Okay. And we can talk about sometime what that means. Anyways.
I'll listen to the children's message when you do it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I know sometimes I feel like the congregation does learn something from the children's message.
Well, so many people said, Pastor, I don't learn anything from your sermon, but I learned from the children's messages.
Maybe because they receive things like children need to,
Yeah. But please don't use that. One guy once told me a long time ago, he said, Pastor, I don't study the Bible. Why don't you study the Bible? Because I'm supposed to have a childlike faith, and I don't want to get too much into it. I just believe. And it's like, actually, you're supposed to be mature in your faith and keep growing. And the only way that's done is through the Bible. The Bible never says, have a childlike faith. It doesn't say that once. But people have that in there.
All right. Well, finishing up 3 here. If you made it through the next few podcasts, we are getting into Cain and Abel next. So that'll be an interesting one on sibling I can't say the word rivalry.
Yeah. Oh,
that.
no. And you're going to have another sibling with your little one. How do you think that's going to work out? I have to ask you, Shannon.
I think it'll be good. I want to teach my kids to appreciate and value their siblings, regardless of tension or disagreement.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that I can try to instill that young in them, that they can fight, but it'll be okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thanks, guys. And we are going to pull for the prize here soon. I think I'm going to do it in the next 2 weeks or so. So I'll put everyone's name that subscribed. I know this was something we were going to do a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
But with sickness and not recording and all of that, we just decided to push it back a little. I think in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to pull from anyone that's subscribed. You'll get a Bible, a gift card, and some merch, some St. John's Lutheran Church merch, and some other little goodies in there, coffee cup, coffee supplies, different stuff. So if you can subscribe, we're going to pull in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So stay tuned, and we'll give you a call if you win, and we'll announce it on the podcast as well.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
All
Have
right.
a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.